Preference is really a starting point to really understand and comprehend our type. But the type becomes even more useful when we really understand and explore the combinations of our preferences and how they interact to create our personality. You'll also notice when you look at the type table that it's organized so that similar types are next to each other, and sections of the type table are organized in order to see qualities that are shared by groups or within the group of type. The INTJ tends to have a preference with a very clear vision of the future. They have a great drive and they are very organized, especially when it comes to implementing their ideas. Now, their order of hierarchy states that they first have a very dominant introverted intuition. This means that they see things from a very global perspective and they're quickly able to relate new information and to overall patterns. They trust their insightful connections and they really are going to have a lot of creativity, which means that a dull routine is going to smother that creativity. They like to develop complex structures and pictures, and they're likely to be very insightful, creative, conceptual, and even a long-range thinker or seeing into the future. Now, that is more what their dominant is, but what people tend to see is their auxiliary function because it's extroverted. And this is where they make their logical decisions. And they're going to access and assess everything with a very critical eye, and they love to be clear and concise. They're long-range planners, and they tend often to have positions of leadership in groups and in organizations. Their tertiary function is a feeling function, while their less preferred or inferior is an extroverted sensing. So what we tend to see with this type of personality is that they're private, reserved. Sometimes they are hard to get to know and even seem quite aloof. They're conceptual, original, and they're very independent. However, under great stress is when the INTJs are going to overindulge in their extroverted sensing, such as watching TV, reruns, playing cards, overeating, exercising too much, or even becoming overly focused on specific details in their environment that they normally would not notice or may even not be important. The preference combinations within a personality type which influence both career choices and interests are the perception, which is sensing or intuition, plus the judgment, which is thinking or feeling. The intuition plus thinking likes to focus on the possibilities. They're innovators. They like to investigate theories, and they're very logical as well as analytical. They're theoretical, and they enjoy technical frameworks. Some best career choices for an intuitive thinker is going to be physical science, research, management, computers, law, engineering, and even some technical work. Energy and the external orientations put together, which would be our extroverts or introverts with our judgers or our perceivers, is really part of how people are going to respond to change. So our IJs are part of the decisive introverts. Now, for decisive introverts, when they see changes or when they're first proposed, they're going to take those changes and they're going to start to check them out against their internal perceptions. Their internal perceptions being an idea, data, or a big picture. Now, if those changes fit with what they already think should happen, they're going to move quickly to implement them. However, if those changes don't fit, they will dig in their heels and become very immovable opponents to the change. Looking at our judgment with our external orientations is about how we deal with our leadership, management, and follower styles. And when we look at them within the T and J, we notice that these are our logical decision makers. The logical decision makers tend to be very analytical and they're decisive leaders. They're going to make their decisions based on principles and systems, like a standard operating procedure. They love overall impacts, and they're going to have a very rational assessment of the outcomes. At times, they can tend to be tough-minded, especially when it tends to look at the implementation of these decisions, because they need things done on a schedule and in a certain amount of time. Now, they also are very effective implementers of policies as long as they have respect toward the leader. The preferences of energy and perception, which is our extroversion and our introversion, plus our sensing or our intuition, determines how we use information within our personality. An IN, an introverted intuition, would be called a thoughtful innovator. Their knowledge is important to them for its very own sake. So the temperament for the INTJ is the NT, which means it's rational. So the rationals are theory-oriented, and they seek to understand the principles upon which the world and things work. They trust logic and reason, and they're skeptical and precise. They think in terms of differences, categories, definitions, and even structures. They focus on strategies and designs that achieve long-range goals that lead to progress. They want competence and even thorough knowledge. Remember that the purpose of learning about our MBTI type and those dynamics is really to help us in understanding ourselves and to better build and to aid in developing our relationships with others. And this is accomplished when we look at the combinations of our preferences, the dynamics within our personality type, as well as the development and the growth that is available to our psychological type.